Look, I need to tell you about something Carl Jung talked about that completely changed how I see suffering. It's called the wounded healer, and once you understand it, you'll never look at your pain the same way again. Here's the thing. Most of us spend our entire lives running from our wounds. We pretend they don't exist. We bury them. We distract ourselves. We tell ourselves we're fine when we're absolutely not fine. But Jung saw something different. He noticed that the people who become the best healers, therapists, teachers, artists, the people who actually help others in meaningful ways, they're not the ones who had perfect lives. They're the ones who went through hell and somehow found their way back. They're wounded, deeply, but instead of letting that wound destroy them, they learned from it, they integrated it, and then they used it to help other people who are still bleeding. That's the wounded healer, someone who transforms their pain into purpose. And Jung didn't just make this up. He found this archetype, this pattern in cultures all over the world, going back thousands of years. Shamans who had to go through near-death experiences before they could heal others. Spiritual teachers who suffered immensely before they could guide anyone. Even in Greek mythology, Chiron, the wounded centaur who couldn't heal himself but became the greatest healer of others. It's everywhere, because it's true. But here's what makes this idea so powerful and honestly kind of brutal. Jung said that your wound isn't just something bad that happened to you. It's not just trauma you need to get over and move on from. Your wound is actually the source of your deepest wisdom. It's the thing that makes you uniquely qualified to help certain people in ways no one else can. Think about it. If you grew up with an alcoholic parent, you understand addiction in a way someone who read about it in a textbook never will. If you've been through depression, you can sit with someone in that darkness without trying to fix them or give them toxic positivity. If you experienced abandonment, you know exactly what it feels like when someone says, "I'm fine," but their eyes are screaming for help. Your pain gave you a language, a sensitivity, a kind of vision that people who haven't been through it just don't have. But, and this is critical, this only works if you actually do the work. You can't just be wounded and call yourself a healer. That's not how it works. Because a wounded healer isn't someone who's still bleeding all over everyone. That's just a wounded person projecting their unprocessed pain onto others. A wounded healer is someone who faced their wound, sat with it, understood it, and integrated it into who they are. They don't deny it. They don't let it control them. They transformed it. Jung called this process individuation. It's basically becoming whole by accepting all the parts of yourself, especially the ones you'd rather ignore. The shameful parts, the broken parts, the parts you think make you unlovable. And here's where it gets really interesting. Jung believed that you can't heal others beyond the point you've healed yourself. If you're still running from your own trauma, you'll unconsciously run from other people's trauma too. You'll give surface-level advice. You'll avoid the real pain. You'll try to fix people instead of actually being present with them. But when you've done your own work, when you've actually gone into your wound and come out the other side, you can hold space for someone else's pain without flinching. You can sit in the fire with them because you've already been burned. You know what it takes to survive it. Let me give you a real example. There's this therapist I know, and she specializes in working with people who have eating disorders. And the reason she is so good at it isn't because she went to the best school or read the most books. It's because she had an eating disorder herself for 10 years. She knows every lie you tell yourself, every excuse, every moment of shame, every time you look in the mirror and hate what you see. She's been there. And when someone sits across from her and says, "You don't understand," she can look them in the eye and say, "Actually, I do." That's the wounded healer, and that changes everything for the person being helped, because they're not just getting advice, they're getting hope. They're seeing proof that it's possible to survive this, that someone made it through, and they're okay now, more than okay. They're using what nearly destroyed them to help others. But here's the hard part. Not everyone makes it to the healer stage. Some people get stuck in the wounded stage, and that's where it gets dangerous. Because when you haven't processed your pain, you start using other people to avoid dealing with it. You become the therapist friend who gives everyone advice but never talks about your own problems. You become the helper who can't say no because being needed is the only way you feel valuable. You become the person who's so busy fixing everyone else that you never have to look at your own life. Jung warned about this. He said that if you try to heal others without healing yourself first, you'll just end up making them carry your wounds too. You'll project, you'll manipulate, you'll create dependencies, because deep down, you're not helping them. You're using them to feel less broken. And that's not healing. That's just spreading the wound. So how do you become a wounded healer instead of just someone who's wounded? First, you have to stop running. You have to turn around and face whatever you've been avoiding. The grief, the shame, the anger, the fear, all of it. And you have to feel it, not think about it, not analyze it. Actually feel it in your body. Jung was big on this. He said you can't think your way out of a wound. You have to go through it. You have to descend into what he called the shadow, all the parts of yourself you've rejected and hidden, and you have to integrate them. That means therapy. That means journaling. That means sitting with uncomfortable emotions instead of numbing them. That means looking at the patterns you keep repeating and asking why. And this part sucks, I'm not going to lie, because facing your wound means admitting things you don't want to admit. Like maybe your parents did their best, but it wasn't enough. Maybe the person who hurt you isn't going to apologize. Maybe you lost years of your life to something that will never make sense. But once you do that, once you actually go into the wound and come out the other side, something shifts. You stop being a victim of your story and you become the author of it. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And you start asking, what can I do with this? And that's when your pain becomes your purpose. Because now you have something to offer. Not advice from a book, not theories from a classroom, but lived experience, earned wisdom. The kind of understanding that only comes from surviving something you weren't sure you'd survive. And people feel that. They can tell the difference between someone who's read about pain and someone who's lived through it. There's a depth there, an authenticity, a kind of quiet strength that doesn't need to prove itself. Jung called this the gold in the shadow. The idea that the thing you're most ashamed of, the thing you've been hiding your whole life, that's actually where your greatest gift is hidden, because the wound forced you to develop qualities you wouldn't have otherwise. Empathy, resilience, compassion, insight. You didn't want those qualities. You didn't choose them, but you have them now, and you can either resent them or you can use them. Here's what I think is the most beautiful part of this whole idea. Your wound doesn't just help you understand other people's pain. It helps you understand your own humanity. Because when you've been broken and put yourself back together, you stop judging people so harshly. You stop expecting perfection. You realize everyone's carrying something, and that makes you kinder, not just to others, but to yourself. Jung said the wounded healer knows that healing isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. And whole means integrating everything, the light and the dark, the strength and the weakness, the joy and the pain. You don't get rid of your wound. You learn to carry it differently. It becomes part of your story instead of the thing that defines you. And eventually, if you do the work, it becomes the thing that helps you connect with others on a level that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Because here's the truth. The people who need your help, they're not looking for someone who has it all figured out. They're looking for someone who's been where they are and found a way through. They're looking for proof that it's possible, that you can go through something terrible and still come out okay, that your pain doesn't have to be the end of your story. And you, with your wound that you've worked so hard to heal, you are that proof. That's the wounded healer. That's what Jung saw, that your greatest suffering can become your greatest contribution. Not because suffering is good, it's not, but because you have the choice to transform it into something meaningful. So, if you're someone who's been through hell, if you're carrying wounds you think make you broken or damaged or less than, I want you to hear this. Those wounds don't disqualify you from helping others. They might actually be exactly what qualifies you, but you have to do the work first. You have to heal yourself before you can heal anyone else. You have to go into the shadow and find the gold. And when you do, when you finally integrate your pain instead of running from it, you'll realize something incredible. Your wound wasn't just something that happened to you. It was preparing you for something. It was preparing you to be the person someone else desperately needs, the person who understands, the person who's been there, the person who can say with absolute certainty, I know it feels impossible right now, but you're going to make it through this. I know because I did. That's the wounded healer. And maybe, just maybe, that's you. Your pain has a purpose. Not because everything happens for a reason, that's bullshit, but because you get to decide what you do with it. You get to choose whether it destroys you or defines you, whether it isolates you or connects you to others who are still fighting the same battle. Jung believed that our wounds are where the light enters, that the cracks in our armor are exactly where we become most human, most real, most capable of genuine connection. So don't run from your wound anymore. Turn around, face it, feel it, and then, when you're ready, use it, because someone out there is waiting for a healer who's been where they are, and that healer might just be you.